I am Joffey Joe, and this is the show, Call It How I See It. And on today's episode, I got a couple of things I want to talk to you all about. First and foremost, I got a brand new guest on the show. He goes by the name of Vinny Talarico. Oh yeah, a big Eagles fan, so I felt it was only right to discuss some Eagles football as we preview this season coming up and what to expect for our favorite team coming out. Some can't miss stuff. And secondly, Jan Carlo is back in the house, and we're going to give our own version of what to preview for this NFL season. It's a football-packed episode. Football's around the corner, and it's time to get ready and prepared for it. I'm really excited. But you don't want to miss out on this action-packed episode.
Here we go. And for this special episode, I have my good friend, Vinny Talarico, on. Say what's up, Vinny.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing?
Yes, sir. This is Vinny's first appearance on Call It How I See It. And knowing Vinny for as long as I have, he is a definite, devout, and hard-nosed Eagles fan. I would love, I've been waiting to have him on the show, especially since the season's about to come up. And, I'm ready to have him on, get his thoughts and opinions towards what we're about to do this year. Because, we're expecting big things, man. We're expecting
big things, bro. Absolutely.
So, first thing I wanted to dive into is, we've been watching the preseason. It's been going by. I got one more week to go. Play again on Thursday night and everything. So far, what have you been able to absorb from our team? And, what do you think might be the biggest need or we're lacking in depth of in terms of where we are moving towards week one here?
I would definitely say wide receiver 3.
Okay.
I mean, God forbid if anything happens to AJ or Devontae, who's going to step into that 1 or 2 role, and then whoever your 4 would be comes to the 3, and then everybody moves up. And if you're having a lack of depth, if everybody has to move up, that weak link gets more of a responsibility in your offense. Right. Now, you could just kind of tailor the offense more towards the passing game to Saquon. Will Shipley's had a really good start to the preseason.
Yes.
You could go maybe, if you wanted to give more looks to Dallas Goedert, you want to take Johnny Wilson, the big receiver from Florida State, maybe try and hit a tight end, do 12 personnel. But the way that Kellen Moore wants to run his offense, I think he wants. And again, in today's NFL, you do need 3 wide receivers in the field that can stretch the field, that can kind of take away, or that can bring 3 levels to your passing game: the intermediate, the short, and the deep.
Yes.
And if they get somebody in there like Houston has, John Mechie, I think I'm saying his name right wrong, but he is a guy that is basically, he has his biggest attribute to his game is his speed. He's from Alabama, and if you put him in the slot, and if cornerbacks are going to double AJ or they're going to double Devontae, it's going to be hard to have that same looks in terms of being able to cover everybody on the field. You can't cover everybody. You can't put 2 people on everybody.
No.
And if you have a coordinator like Kellen Moore that can scheme people open, and if Jalen gets better as a passer, he's able to see the field better. He goes with his progressions better. Having a 3rd receiver like that definitely helps. And in terms of depth, right now, I don't know who is the clear-cut wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of struggles from what you've been hearing with the preseason and in training camp, and that's my biggest worry.
No, I agree too, Vin. You hit the nail on the head. You hit it on so many different levels. John Mechie would be a very, very interesting prospect to add to the Eagles, especially since you said, you shed light, the familiarity playing with Devontae and Jalen Hurts in the Alabama offense. He's a true slot. Right now, I don't think we have a true slot. Paris Campbell's been trying to fight. John Ross, I don't know, man. He's just a bust. I don't see anything great coming from him. Other than speed.
Unfortunately, no. He's still living off of his 40-yard dash time, bro.
Yes, he is. He's going to be telling everybody that till the day he dies.
4.28 forever, yeah.
Sometimes that's a gift and a curse. You flash your talent, and then other aspects they lack. And I think that in terms of being a deep threat, I remember last week when Pickett was in, he actually threw a ball where it needed to be for once.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy just kind of alligator-armed and read it wrong. It was supposed to be, he threw it in the inside, which he would have caught and broken, went to the house. But, he kind of read it wrong on the outside. I guess that might be stuff that he's been dealing with his whole career. So he's on the fence. And then some of these other guys, I'm not really sold on them either, Vin. I know Kellen Moore's trying to get creative, even, like you said, put Johnny Wilson at tight end or trying to implement him more. I know he was injured last week and wasn't able to really play in the game. But in terms of everything, I think that is an area we need to watch out for. But that's why we do have Howie and stuff. So hopefully.
Yeah, and that's the last couple preseasons they've made trades late in August, or they've signed players late in August.
Right.
The year they went to the Super Bowl, they got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson right at the end of training camp.
Right.
A couple years ago when they won the Super Bowl, I know it was 2017, a long time ago, but they traded for Ronald Darby.
Right.
They always try to look at where they can get a veteran need, whether it's for depth or for someone that has to start.
Right.
And they have the draft picks for next year to move some stuff around and try and get somebody that can come in and help them now.
No, for sure. That definitely helps having the collateral and everything. This guy has schematically set things up correctly over time, and that's why we trust him to do the job he does. So
he's the best in the league.
Yes, he is. So, a lot of people have taken notice over time, too. So, it's going to be interesting to see. Bringing up Kellen Moore, we have a new coaching staff here. Giving everything that fell apart last year with, Brian Johnson and even Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. It's just we clean house except everything but Sirianni. So, there's some type of reason he's there. But, he's going to be our head coach this year, like it or not. And we have to have trust in these other guys to do their job. And these other 2 guys, in terms of Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, they've been around. But, what's your intrigue and what do you think might come about with, having Kellen Moore run the offense now?
I'm extremely excited for Kellen Moore because this is finally the first time where we're going to have an offensive coordinator that seems to have creativity with what he wants to do.
Yes.
Like, even in the very small sample size, from hearing what they're doing in training camp and watching what they've done in the preseason, just seeing Jalen take snaps with under center, have a traditional play-action passing game, and getting Jalen to do something like play action, like back when Donovan would go play action to Westbrook, he'd roll to the left, he'd get the defense moving, and then come around and throw to the opposite side. Like, having your offense do simple things like that instead of just doing the RPO out of the shotgun every play drove me crazy last year.
I know.
Like, the only time they literally weren't doing RPOs was probably for the tush push.
I agree.
And if you're in, like, let's just say if you're doing an RPO and you're in 3rd and 3, when you hand the ball to that back, he's 5 yards to get to the line of scrimmage.
You're already at a disadvantage.
So it's like 3rd and 7.
Right.
Now, if you have that opportunity where you have a better running back than if you have a better running back than Saquon now, he's going to be a threat because he's no longer going to be in an offense where he's the defensive coordinator's main focus, because you can't put 8 in the box on him anymore because you have 2 great receivers. You have a very good tight end on Dallas Goedert. And if Jalen, like I said, if he continues to get better as the season goes along throughout his career, he continues that trajectory of becoming a better quarterback. With a coordinator like Kellen Moore, we've seen what Dak Prescott's done under Kellen Moore. Put some amazing numbers up. And doing it with the offensive line that we have in Philly, the playmakers, I think it's a recipe for success. I really do. So much better than what we had last year. It's very refreshing.
I do. I agree 1,000%. And then, yes, you're absolutely right. Get creative, man. Like, last year, like, I think we ran a record screen pass record of all time. Like, it's crazy. Like, none of those plays worked. It was very simple. I mean, I think Brian Johnson was over his head. Like, there's a lot of riffraff about who was really calling the plays and whose offense it really was, whether it was Sirianni or this guy. But, like, at the end of the day, like, having Kellen Moore just run this thing, I feel I have more faith in that than having, maybe having Sirianni dig his hands in and try to influence
I think Sirianni, I mean, if you look at if you go back to the first year when he was the coach here, when they gave his play calling duties away to Shane Steichen, that's when they started to run the ball and make a playoff run. And then Shane Steichen controlled the whole offense in 2022. He leaves to get a coaching job. If you watch what the Colts did with Anthony Richardson, it looked just like the Eagles' offense in 2022. And then last year, you just saw the offense like we just talked about, how plain it was, and no creativity. So if Kellen Moore has his hands in it more, that's fine with me. Sirianni can kind of be that figurehead head coach where he's just kind of there, but we really know who's calling the plays. And I'm hoping it's not him, and I'm just hoping he has that role on the sideline where he's a player's coach. Hopefully the players
just manage the game.
Just manage the game, and hopefully last year the players were a little more had more animosity towards Brian Johnson and not Sirianni, because God forbid if they do have like another stretch where things don't go well, and then they're going to start to look at Sirianni as somebody who's going to be on the hot seat next year.
Yeah, no, for sure. If they underperform this year, I think this guy is going. Honestly, if they don't make the playoffs or they have another first-round exit, if they don't make the playoffs, he's definitely going. For sure. Like, even if they don't make it deep, like even if they're one and done or they don't go to the Super Bowl, I think Larry and Roseman have such high expectations for how they built this team over the last couple of years, especially how it ended with Doug. And how quickly they were able to get back to the Super Bowl. I mean, they basically gave him, as they say, they gave him keys to like a Ferrari. Right? Yes. And if you're unable to perform as that you were one and done in 2021, you were one and done last year. You have 3 playoff runs or 4 playoff runs that you don't have the Super Bowl for with this roster. With Lurie and Rosen at the top, they'll chop you off real quick. You gotta go, buddy.
Real quick, yeah, for sure.
That lease on that Ferrari is gonna go bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, can't afford it no more. But on the defensive side, I love Fangio. I love the fact that they put a little bit more investment into the linebacker this year. I know that Devin White may not have been as great as he was last year as he was in previous years in Tampa Bay. But I think that signing could be a lot like Nigel Bradham when he came over from Buffalo.
A big
prove me. He got a 1-year deal, and he was like the captain of that defense for a couple years.
We wouldn't have won the Super Bowl if he wasn't there.
Yeah, and then even hearing good things about Zach Bond, I think Kobe Dean not having to be the main linebacker on the defense, he can learn from Devin White. Trot Jr. looked pretty good in the preseason. Looked pretty good in training. I know he's going to take maybe a year to get his feet wet. But all those guys playing behind that defensive line, especially those 2 D tackles, with a coordinator like Fangio that's going to be able to free them up and allow them to do things, I think they got. I want to say better on the edge because I do miss Hassan Reddick, but I understand why they let him go. And you can see why they let him go in New York. Like he's already asking for a trade out.
No, he's going to become a problem.
And it wouldn't make sense if they gave him like a $30 million deal and he's pushing the age of 30.
And he had a big fall off last year anyway. He was missing sacks during that whole stretch where he could have completed plays and just did not finish the play. And that was really
he was just like chasing sacks and chasing his own stats. And
yes.
Under Fangio, like that's not going to fly. And I think Fangio was kind of one of the people like in Howie's ear, like, hey, I don't want this guy in my defense. Like, go sign Bryce Huff. He's younger. He had 10 sacks last year playing part-time. And he was a big influence in them drafting Jalen Hunt. Who's looked really good in the preseason. And Nolan Smith, this is going to be his first year where he's had a whole healthy offseason since he was in Georgia. And then I think Jordan Davis gets a bad rep for last year. I know everybody likes to blame because he takes plays off or maybe he's lazy because his conditioning's bad. But the whole defense last year fell apart. It wasn't just one player. I think Jalen Carter is only going to get. I think he might be one of the 3 best players on the team. I think he's incredible.
He's going to boom this year.
I think he has the possibility of probably winning Defensive Player of the Year. Like
he was in the running for Rookie of the Year last year.
It's hard for D tackles to win that award unless you're like a sack artist. The last one to do it was Aaron Donald, which is arguably the best D tackle ever. But I think Carter's definitely like in line to have a similar career path where he could be a game changer at that position. And then getting back to the secondary, 2 great picks with Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and having Isaiah Rodgers, another year of Keely Ringo getting better, even Eli Ricks, having another year with him in this defense.
But still being getting familiar with things and stuff. In terms of depth, I'll take Eli Ricks as like a fifth corner.
I'll take all those guys for corner. And then even just getting an underrated leader back in CIHISI. I think a big reason why they fell off last year too, they didn't have that guy that has like that swagger in the locker room on the defense. And he definitely brought that to them in 2022.
No, he definitely adds a little spice and flavor to things.
He kind of brought what Malcolm Jenkins brought when they got him on the Saints. He's a leader in the locker room, and when they lost Jenkins, between having Jenkins and having CIHISI, they had the similar gap that they had from Dawkins to Jenkins.
Right. I can see that. In terms of playmaking ability and being on the field, yes.
And when they found CIHISI, I mean, he was huge for them in 2022. He had a great season.
Yeah, I know he did, and he until he got hurt and everything. And I think that's like the big elephant in the room with him. But if he can stay healthy and let other guys do their job, I don't see why he can't go throughout the year. And he's, like you said, man, big part of our defense. I don't think that guy's talking about enough his vocalness, him just being a leader, and that's what we needed. I think last year we lacked in leadership, and there wasn't enough guys to really step up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like they just looked lost a lot of the time, and their attitude was beaten, and just not being able to get off the field on third down. It's just very demoralizing, and it's just as fans, it's really freaking brutal to watch. But
And I think a lot of the attitude problem came from the defensive coordinator change.
Yes,
because a lot of those players, even Darius Slay, he's always talking about how
no one's ever liked
Matt Patricia.
No one's
he
ever
didn't like him in Detroit.
Right.
And I think Hassan Reddick, I mean, he made it public during post-game press conferences. It's not my job to be dropping back into coverage.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, maybe technically it is his job, but is that what he's best at? No. What he's best at is getting after the quarterback.
That's not what he's getting paid to do.
He literally put them in the Super Bowl because he rushed the quarterback against the 49ers and knocked them out of the game.
Yes, exactly. That was crucial, and it really.
And if you're a great defensive coordinator, you have to look at the strengths of your best players and key guys like Reddick. I'm not going to ask you to cover a tight end. I'm going to ask you to get to the quarterback so we can't throw it to the tight end.
Right, or even put him in the flat and stuff. He's there to do his job. That's what he's getting paid to do, not run back in coverage, and that was very well put. Real quick, I just want to hit the nail on the head on what do you think about the rookies we drafted this year?
Love them. I mean, we touched real quick on the two corners.
Yes.
We touched on Will Shipley.
Yes.
I love the Jalen Hunt pick.
Yes.
I think next year he'll be a starting edge rusher with Nolan Smith.
Okay.
Because this is probably BG's. I think BG did say this is his last year.
Yes, yes.
So they'll figure out a way to maybe find a defensive end that can play a BG spot and then move Huff and Smith around to where Hunt can be a starter.
Right.
And if Fangio is going to be here for more than 1 year, which I think he will be, I think we'll figure out a way to make him more involved in the defense.
Yes.
And again, we can talk about the depth too, kind of going back to the first question, like right guard. If Mekhi Becton, if he's starting and if he's injured, Trevor Keegan can come in and play.
Right.
He was really good at Michigan.
Right.
Very good at Michigan. And he's a guy that can play guard, he can play tackle. And if you want him to play on the left side as opposed to the right, you got Landon Dickerson, who's literally played every offensive lineman position going back to Bama.
Right.
He's one of the best interior linemen in football. But having those rookies that can learn from those guys, like having Mitchell and DeJean being able to learn from CIHISI and from Darius Slay, even a guy, I know he's not a popular player in Philly, but James Bradbury, say what you want about him, he's a very smart football player.
Yeah.
And I think he can, in terms of being a leader, he can definitely help Quinyon Mitchell. He can help Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
And so can guys like Ringo, who played at Georgia. It was a winning football program. They learned a lot there, and that transitions to the NFL.
Right.
And when you look at Quinyon Mitchell coming from a small school, you look at Cooper DeJean coming from Iowa. Sure, they played in the Big Ten. They weren't winning much, but coming into that culture of winning from the younger veterans like Ringo, even like Ricks coming from Alabama, but learning from guys like Slay, Trevor Keegan, getting to learn under Jeff Stoutland, I think is going to help him out tremendously. And things, I mean, we look at Will Shipley, we just kind of talked about earlier about how he reminds us of some running backs we watched when we were growing up, like Brian Westbrook, and how he could be used.
Yes.
Not saying he's going to be B. West, but just in the way that he's going to be able to come in and spell Barkley, third down running back, and catch passes out of the backfield, to take that classic screen pass that Andy Reid always used to run. Yeah. You let the pass rush come in, you throw it off to the flat, and you get a big game. I think Will Shipley is going to be a big part of their offense this year. I really do.
I do too. He looked great in the preseason, especially with the screen aspect. Like you said, he was able to, a lot of the yardage we lost on a couple plays. I remember 2 plays, Pickett was able to dump it off to him, and he was able to, gain some of those yards back, which is really like a good safety net to have, especially as a quarterback. That guy's there, and he's gonna be able to help you out when you really need it. So I'm really excited to see our rookies this year and how they get implemented. Yes, some might come in more than others and be used in situations that's different. I know they're trying to put Quinyon at slot, which, in terms of talent, no, that's not his spot. But, in terms of, talent, I'm saying, him being on the field, it definitely helps and makes a difference.
It helps him out a lot, for sure.
For sure.
And what I like, too, when they went into this draft, I'm not sure what the exact number was, but they ended up getting more picks for players in this year's draft as terms of, let's say, for example, they walked in and only had 5 draft picks.
Right.
You walked out with 7 players, and then for next year's draft, you created 3 more extra picks as well. So Howie was able to get more players in this year's draft, stockpile picks for next year. You can use that at the trade deadline. You can use that right before the start of the regular season, like we talked about wide receiver 3. You can use a pick to go get somebody. And they're always looking at next year's draft board, too. I think next year in the first round, maybe offensive tackle, depending what happens with Lane.
Yeah.
Depending what you see out of the second or third year guys this year, if you think they're going to get a second contract. If you don't think they are, then maybe you draft their position. But the way that they set their draft up for this year and the next couple years with getting more picks, I mean, you can't be anything but excited about the future, man. It's not just this year. It's they're built for 3, 4, 5, 6
longevity.
years. They definitely are.
Yes, longevity, and that's the biggest thing. So last thing I want to take on here is What's your prediction, man? What do you think we're going to end up running on this 17-game schedule that we run now?
17-game schedule because the NFL only cares about money. I would
yes,
say,
yes, yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they talk about player safety, but they want these guys to play more and play every week on Thursday.
Here, we'll put a hat on your helmet. We'll put a hat on your helmet. You'll be more safe.
Yeah, just go out there and play on 2 days rest and travel across the country.
Yep.
It'll be good. I would say 12, 13 wins.
Okay. That's about like what I was thinking.
I would say maybe their floor is 11. Like maybe they get upset at some point in the season,
games,
or maybe they rest starters.
Right.
They always split with the Cowboys. You know, they have at Cincy, at Baltimore. Those are tough games.
Yeah, I mean, we had to play the North this year. That's given that was the best division of football last year. So.
Yeah, and they play. I believe they play at the Rams. That's always like a home game for them.
Yeah.
And the one thing, I mean, even week 1 might be. I mean, it's going to be. I'm kind of upset that it's a home game for the Eagles.
Yeah, because that takes away from us.
It does, but again, with the 17 games thing, you also get that one extra game, so they still have 8 home games at the link, which is nice.
Right.
And if you look at their schedule, obviously, like last year, that crazy run they had from when they played the Cowboys twice, Kansas City, Buffalo, Miami, and the 49ers. There's no gauntlet this year.
Yeah, man.
And the last 4 of their 5 games are at home, which is nice.
Oh, that's huge.
So if they're tight, if they're tight at the end of the year around like Thanksgiving with the Cowboys as far as like the first place in the division, I don't think they will be. I think they'll be much better than Dallas. I think the Cowboys might have a really bad year with all the things that are happening.
I think so too. I think they're due, and I think
Lamb, Parsons.
I think the glass is going to shatter all over them.
I think so too, man. But I mean, if they split with the Cowboys, I mean, I'm not too mad about it because it happens almost. I can't tell you the last time they split the Cowboys.
I know it's been funny, but
it's been a long time.
I think having Kellen Moore there might have a big influence.
I didn't think about that. That could
definitely have a big influence there. He's definitely going to want to stick it to them.
That's not. I didn't even think about that until you just mentioned it. But I mean, I think they'll definitely be one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC. Obviously, San Francisco is going to be up there.
I know.
I think the Rams are going to be tough.
I do too.
I mean,
if they can stay healthy, I was about to say their key is Stafford. If he's not on the field, then we see where they go.
Yeah, I mean, I still think he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. He's just been consistently, like, even in Detroit, I know they weren't a great team, but he was the reason that they were at least in games. And he was the reason why they went to the playoffs and won that one playoff game in 20-plus years that they had.
He's on the cusp.
He was great for that. Yeah,
he's on the cusp of being like a Hall of Famer. He's on that line.
No, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I mean,
I think his numbers will prove out. Super Bowl, the 5,000-yard seasons and stuff, his stats will check out.
Put him in there for sure, man. Absolutely. And I mean, the rest of the NFC. I mean, the NFC West outside of San Francisco and LA, the Seahawks won't do much this year.
No,
I think the Cardinals have a good future. I mean, if Murray can bounce back.
Yeah, during that stretch last year, I think Gannon actually had. I think the guys actually like playing for him. It seems like they play for him. Yeah, it's weird as it sounds. As awkward it was.
I think the NFC North is going to beat themselves up a lot this year.
I do too.
But I do think, unless Jordan Love, I mean,
he's the key.
Good.
He's the key.
Like for them to be a Super Bowl contender and like have a legitimate chance to get there, he would literally have to be like one of the 3 best players in football this year.
He's got to show why he's worth that money.
And if he's ready to take that step, I think they can definitely get there. The rest of the NFC North, you said that the Lions could take a step back.
I think so.
Last year, you said weak schedule. I don't disagree with you. The Bears, not this year, but next year, I think Caleb is. I think
he's legit.
Very, very good. I mean,
but that's the thing
between their learning year.
This is the thing between him and Fields, though. Like they've surrounded him with the right people. They have the right weapons around him. They build it. They even got people on the offensive line. In terms of Fields, they never really gave him those type of weapons that at his disposal the way like Caleb Williams is about to have. And I think Caleb Williams.
But if you look at I think the Bears look at it as more as like if we can make this trade with Carolina, get these assets, and still get Williams. Yeah. Because they still have Carolina's. They have not their first round pick. They have their second round pick next year. That's still like a top 35 or top 40 pick.
I know. And it's
Carolina's going to suck.
I know.
And if you look at the physical skill set of Caleb in comparison to Field, I think Caleb is 10x the quarterback that he is.
I agree.
I really do. I think Caleb may by the end of next year will be top 10. I think he's that good.
I agree too. I think he's going to be as good as advertised. I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a good year too. I think things will start popping up.
He protects himself. That's
the thing.
He plays a lot like RG3. He just thinks he can run around and be like Superman. But in the NFL, if they hit you hard, you're going down.
Especially the way his frame is built. It's like he's got to be smart about about the way he conducts himself on the field. But Vin. This has been fun, man. I'm glad to have you on.
Absolutely.
I definitely am looking to have you on more, and we can take on some UFC, boxing, more football and stuff. I'm really excited. I will. But thank you for coming on and calling things as you see them, man.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. All right, man. I'll see you. Have a good night, my friend.
Later, bro. You too.
Here we go. Yes. And look who we have back in the house. We have my man, Jan Carlo. What's going on, my brother?
Nothing much, brothers. Nothing much.
Yes. So, I'm feeling very
Football League. So we're gonna talk some more football. All right.
Sounds good.
So we did our fantasy take last week. Now this week I want to dive in and start to unravel this year's preview, or at least a preview of what we might expect for things to happen. There's a couple storylines that's been going on so far in this 2024 training camp for certain teams. One team I want to shed the light, and I wish you were here, Glenn. Where are you at, my man?
I mean, seriously. I mean, you really going to be competitive. I used to I wish I could ask Mike Tomlin what he really thought when he had those 3 quarterbacks coming into the season. What did you expect?
I love you, man. But we had to talk about it because we have to talk about it. So Jay, if you were Mike Tomlin, right, and your eyes were starting to get bigger and bigger, what do you think they should do with their quarterback situation, given in the last 5 quarters they've only put up 3 points? It seems like they're struggling. But what would you do if you're Mike Tomlin, Jay?
All right. So before training camp, I was going to say start with experience and start Russell Wilson. But after seeing what I've seen in this preseason so far, the Steelers' offensive line isn't good.
Nope.
And that being said, I'm going Justin Fields right now. Russ is coming off a hamstring. We don't know what he really has. Plus bad offensive line plays. Bad offensive line play for me is Justin Fields. I need somebody who can move, and Russ with the hamstrings too stationary for me right now.
I agree.
He's holding on to the ball too long, right? Just from what I've seen.
No, for sure. And I think that's been the problem with him the last couple of years. It's almost he's got like the Wentz syndrome where you're just holding the ball too long and have a bad sense of what's going on around you as the pocket collapse. And, given his, we've always looked at him as a shorter quarterback being under 6 foot. And, he's been able to weave through, the weeds sometimes being in the pocket and how messy he can get and being mobile and everything. But, now we see later on in the stages of Russell's career, he's having struggles with getting out the pocket. Yes, mind you, this is preseason and there's still lots of take into consideration here, but their line is lacking. They should probably did more to bolster it over time. Their running back situation is a little funny too, even with Jalen Warren being hurt and Najee Harris still being a question mark. Seems like the Steelers, which I wish Glenn was here, but seems like the Steelers they're gonna have a little bit of an issue. Hopefully they can shake it off. I think overall, if you're gonna look at the big picture of things, it seems like Russell Wilson's just a bridge, just a rental. You probably could take a flyer on Justin Fields just because of his upside and talent. But I don't know if you saw the one play where it ended up being a 2-yard pass, but he had a guy wide open as they ran a post route right in the middle of the field that would have scored a touchdown. I think there's, with Justin Fields too, the aspect of him being such an athlete and then the quarterback coming in the factor. It's just to see mentally where are you in terms of reads and looking at things down the field. And we've seen some quarterbacks that are mobile have problems seeing down the field, and it kind of comes to light sometimes. Jalen Hurts had some issues last year. Lamar Jackson in the past has had issues about going downfield. So it's interesting to see how Justin Fields might develop over time. I know they have a new offensive coordinator and trying to do new things there. So it's going to be interesting.
Arthur Smith.
Yeah, that's the thing.
He has a lot to prove after that debacle in Atlanta.
I agree 1,000%, and he's definitely trying here. But what made him good in Tennessee, where he was able to parlay that into the Atlanta Falcons job, was being able to work with Tannehill and his skill set and using the play action. I think if he can use that light and get Fields to use some play action, even take snaps under center more, I think that will help spread out things and open up more space for them on offense, especially if they're running the play action. And it will help the running game overall, too. So there's a lot of things to take in consideration here. So
right. I think this is where the losing Deontay Johnson to Carolina will kind of come back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah.
Now all you're depending on is George Pickens, Freiermuth, and I think you're going to use Freiermuth to block.
Yeah.
Because your line is so bad.
Right, exactly. And then I know they drafted Roman Wilson out of Michigan, a very good, talented player. But, he's still a rookie, still unproven. They're very thin at receiver. There's going to be some question marks. They were able to squeak into the playoffs last year, and given everything, their defense is still, possibly if Watt can stay healthy, still top-tier type of defense. It's just a lot of their games I feel are just going to be very close and tight-notched games where they're going to have to depend on either Fields' athletic ability or some type of big play for them to win. I could see some type of struggle, especially with their offensive line issues.
Also, this just shows the desperation they need for a playmaker like a Brandon Ayuk. If they can't get if they cannot get that deal done, I expect to see some struggle.
I do too. I don't think Mike Tom. I still think he just signed the extension, so I don't think he has really anything to worry about in terms of job security and stuff. But more heads may roll. R. Smith's head could roll again, so we'll see how they fare in terms of their offensive prowess moving forward this season. So definitely something we're gonna have to monitor and watch. We're keeping an eye on it, Glenn. Don't worry, and I feel like we're gonna be talking about this a little bit more this season as this has become a controversy, especially in Steel City. So we'll see how that moves going forward. So, Jay, I did want to dive into, some of the teams that we watched go to the playoffs last year. And I wanted to dive into a team that you may feel this year could be a surprise to some that didn't make the playoffs, or it could just, surprise the whole NFL in general. What team do you think that might be?
Shane Steichen and the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay, very interesting choice.
I believe a healthy Anthony Richardson can make a lot of noise. I think that division is more, it's Houston's to win.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Right.
Who knows? The footage is out now with C.J. Stroud. Is Stephon Diggs going to turn into a diva? That's a question.
Yeah. I feel like their situation there, I think he's just going to have to suck it up and realize that he's just not receiver number one anymore, honestly. But we'll see how that develops, too.
I think Anthony Richardson was showing flashes of being great before he got hurt last year.
I do, too. Even when he played us in the preseason, he was pretty sharp. I mean, for the most part, you see why he was taken so early in terms of talent. Yeah, given back at Florida that he didn't have the most experience. Like, he had probably like a year and a half of playing, and then his record didn't really show that well. But we did see flashes even back then of what he could be as, a dual threat quarterback, especially in terms of his size and stature. I see a lot of, McNabb in his game. So his question is staying healthy. That's always been his elephant in the room. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think he's AR-15 anymore either. I think he changed his number. I could be wrong. He changed his number to 5 now, so he's no longer AR-15. But
he's Air McNabb 5 now.
Yeah, there you go. Following suit there. But, I mean, with Shane Steichen and everything they got going on, Jonathan Taylor, no contract dispute, him coming back healthy, we know what he can do. And, Michael Pittman, other options, they're going to come along. Their defense is still pretty strong. So that's definitely a team I could definitely, see, making the playoffs and making that next step. I mean, to get to where they were with Gardner Minshew says a lot, and it's actually good coaching by Shane Steichen, who we miss as Eagles fans. But
we miss you, Shane.
We do miss you, Shane. I ain't gonna lie. But Kellen Moore will wipe that out the water, so we'll see how that goes. But definitely an interesting choice. If I did have a choice, I am going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. I think getting Kirk Cousins, even given his situation, I just think there's so much around him in terms of talent. If you really look at the numbers he's put up his career, even with Washington, he's been a perennial 4,000-yard passer, and now with this type of offense and skill set options around him, I definitely think he could honestly almost be an MVP quarterback. He could almost have the best career of his whole, have the best season of his career this year. So it's gonna be very interesting. Their defense has definitely bolstered up. Them just getting Matt Judon, their secondary getting
Justin Simmons.
They got Bates there. They have AJ Terrell. I mean, they have Jackson up front. They're legitimate. I'm really interested to see them, especially with Raheem Morris running the show now. I think that team is definitely on the up. I think they're going to win the NFC South. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I mean, I'm putting a lot of money on the Falcons, honestly. I could see them winning 13 games, 12 games. But that's just my epiphany. We'll see. But I definitely think that stock on the Atlanta Falcons is up as much as I don't like the Dirty Birds. So we'll see. I wanted to go the opposite here. So I wanted to dive into a team that you may feel that might take a step back and not make the playoffs this time. Put on that thinking cap.
Interesting. Yeah. It is interesting. I mean,
go ahead, say it. Dallas. Go ahead.
I'm going to say Dallas, man.
There you go. I wanted to weave it out of you. I know it.
Dallas is not...
It's the obvious things. It's the obvious things. I mean,
it's the elephant in the room. I think Mike McCarthy's a lame duck coach.
Yes. Could be a setup.
Dak Prescott might be a lame duck quarterback if they don't want to pay him.
Yeah, that's another can of worms.
Where's CeeDee Lamb?
He's not there either. And then, I mean, it's important for these guys to be in camp, honestly, because this is where you get the reps. And, I think last year they started off rusty, and then they finally figured out a way to use CD the right way. But, given everything now, who are you guys? What are you guys doing? You having Zeke be the fucking feature of your offense? Brandon Cooks? Come on, bro. I do think Jake Ferguson's going to have even a bigger year. I think he's really going to take that step.
They're going to depend on him a lot because their wide receiver, too, is a huge question mark, even though Brandon Cooks is still good.
Yeah.
I think he's on the wrong side of 30 now, 30, 31.
I agree.
This is the Jake Ferguson breakout year, I believe.
I think so, too. Even last year, he took that next step, but I think this year he's going to be a proof
to why the rest of the world he's a top 5 tight end, because he's like 6'7", 6'8". He's just big, man. He's a hard cover for anybody. So I guess we'll have to look at that moving forward. A team that I think is being really valued at a high level because of what they did last year, that I think is going to take a step back. I think they could still make the playoffs, but I think the Detroit Lions are going to take a step back. Honestly, their schedule last year was very favorable, and given everything that they went through, yeah, they experienced going to the NFC Championship game and almost won the game, but not closing out. And I do think they did, and I think some of Dan Campbell's gambles this year might hurt him. I don't think it's gonna. I think he's gonna fall. I don't think he's gonna fall flat on his face, but I think there's gonna be a couple eggs dropped on his head. Honestly, it's because of his irrational decision making, and I understand as a leader and a coach, or even a manager, like it's not. You trust your players to do the right thing, but sometimes you have to be almost logical of everything that's around it and going on. So it should be something we're going to monitor. I just think that them as a team are going to take a step back. Like I said, I think I could still see them winning 10 games, maybe 9. I think that division will be a big fight, that whoever wins that division will win with 10 or 11 games. I'm not really fully sold on the Packers yet either. I guess I need to see more. I mean, I understand they've made some offseason moves to propel their team and make things better for Jordan Love, but, I think, we'll have to see how things end up going. So, all right, Jay. So after talking about that, I want to talk about now, I want to talk about the defending champs, all right? So this whole idea of them going back-to-back and possibly even running a three-peat. What do you think about the Chiefs?
Until somebody beats them, you have to favor them.
Yeah.
Their team was not that good really last year, but they know how to play as a team. And Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? I think they have Eric Bieniemy back, I believe.
No, Bieniemy left. I think they have Matt Nagy now.
They still have Nagy. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, he left and came back. But it's all right.
Bieniemy, I think he went to. I think he's coaching offensive. I think he's the offensive coordinator now at UCLA. Yeah, the mighty.
Right. He took Chip Kelly's spot.
The mighty have fallen. Chip Kelly's now in freaking Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. How the mighty have fallen.
They're lining him up to take Ryan Day's spot if they don't win.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But let's get back on track with the Chiefs.
So, who can stop them? I mean, did they lose L'Jarius Sneed? Sure, they did. But that's because of the evolution of Trent McDuffie.
Yes.
Somebody I wanted to the draft.
Yes.
Talk about it.
Yes.
They signed Hollywood Brown to a pretty decent deal, but he gets hurt.
Yeah, he's already hurt.
Xavier Worthy, another gem they find in the draft. Whoop-de-freaking do.
I know.
The rich get richer.
I know. It's like, when he got drafted, I was like, not that guy to that team. Not that guy to that team. I was like, this is Tyreek Hill over again. And then, and they still have, they still have the issues with Rasheed Rice. He'll probably get suspended like 3 or 4 games from what I was reading. So, depending on the case and everything. But
what season is he going to get suspended?
That's another thing, too.
Not this season. And they're going to be hard to stop.
I agree totally, 100%. He had a great year for them. He had 900 yards catching and everything. Had a good
Clutch.
Playoff run. Yeah, he was. I actually think he still is their number one for sure. I think these other guys compliment him.
You still have returning players.
Yeah,
you still have the great Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
You still have Isaiah Pacheco, who's now turning into a 3-down back this year.
Yes,
we're going to see how Andy makes that happen.
Yes.
And of course, you have Patrick Mahomes. I think their most important contract that they redid was Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Getting him back was huge.
I agree.
If they don't have Chris Jones, then my questions, the red flags start to go up a little bit. Because filling that hole...
No, it's like a void, man.
Like, huge to fill.
He's such
Aaron Donald retiring, I think that's your best tackle in the league.
I definitely, without 1,000%, agree with you. I think Chris Jones is the best interior defensive tackle in football right now. So, I mean, this team...
Who's that linebacker they have? George... I can't pronounce his last name.
Oh, Karlaftis. He's a good player. He is a good... He was. I wanted us to get him personally last year at defensive end. He had a good year last year. He made plays in
especially the way our dollar store linebackers are looking. We are hurting right now.
I think we're at $2 linebackers now compared to our dollar store linebackers next year, or a Family Dollar. So we'll see how that turns out. But I mean, new scheme and everything.
We'll see how Devin White does it.
Right.
The Chiefs, and until they're taken down, they're the top of the mountain.
They are, and then they are at the top of the mountain, like you said, and then they're also just. They're becoming a dynasty. I hate to say it, especially since they beat us 2 years ago about it. But and it's so crazy to think because they weren't that great last year, like you said, and they
weren't.
They felt like there was a lot of questions about them, and even them losing on Christmas, that was just ugly. And
to the Raiders,
I know, but how they bounced back and they figured out and got the ball rolling and was able to get on their playoff run and just winning games. No, they didn't win them pretty, but they won. And that's really what matters, and that's what real championship teams do. Sometimes it's not pretty, it's not ugly. But when the Eagles were trying to say that last year when they're going 10-0, like I'm not trying to hear that, bro. I'm not at all. Especially like
no, the difference between the Chiefs coaching staff and the Eagles coaching staff, it doesn't matter what year, but it's last year that you can see the difference. Matt Nagy compared to Brian Johnson.
It's not even
Steve
comparable.
Spagnuolo's he's one of one.
Yeah, he is for sure. Especially coming from the Jim Johnson tree of defense and everything. It's
he harassed us for years.
I know, and it's been tough for us to even get over the hump with that. But given everything, like you said, the Chiefs are still on top of the NFL, and as long as Patrick Mahomes takes the field and does whatever else, especially if he's throwing the ball behind him,
running trick plays in the preseason.
I know, right? Throwing the ball behind his back and everything. It's just like a toy. It's a game, and it's gonna be an onslaught. So we'll see what happens.
What I like about their team is they have the next man up mentality.
They do. They're ready, and that's a kudos to Andy, because Andy's always had that. Even with his time in Philly, having the next guy step up or just working with what he has available. He's always worked with pieces and made it work, and and had great results from it. So
just take a moment to remember that James Thrash and Todd Pinkston were our top two receivers at one point, and we were still in the NFC Championship.
I know.
Kudos to Andy Reid.
Yeah, making things work when you really don't have much to work with. It's really saying a lot, and that just makes a good coach. It really does. He's really one of a kind.
One of the goats.
He's a top 5 coach of all time. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. I think he's really, like, his case right now is definitely proven that. So we'll definitely monitor these guys moving forward. But, Jay, I appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.